Speaking on his podcast, Rio Ferdinand has slammed Mikel Arteta because of his video with Salt Bay. You know what I'm talking about, when Arsenal's manager went to dinner with his family during the club's winter break in Dubai. So I usually wouldn't care about making a video for a topic like this. But I just had to share some of my thoughts. Not just because of Ferdinand's comments, but because we've been seeing and hearing the criticism towards Arteta for quite some time now. I just don't get it. Why since Arteta became our manager, all of these former players, journalists, pundits, other managers are always picking on Arteta, and they are desperately trying to diminish his success and everything he has achieved so far with Arsenal. For those of you who follow me, you know that I've always been critical about Mikel Arteta, and I definitely don't agree with some of the decisions he's made on and off the pitch since he joined the club. But at the same time, I have to be realistic. Since he came here, he changed the whole culture at the club. He brought back some of the old traditions and values that we had lost. He lifted us out of the hole we were in after Arsene Wenger left. He brought in a lot of great players. He even managed to get the most out of some of the players who have already been here for many, many years. He brought back attractive football, and what's probably most important, he restored the faith of the fans that after so many years, we can finally fight for the biggest trophies again. So my point is, even though I tend to criticize him from time to time, I'm realistic when it comes to his coaching ability and his track record so far. So when I heard this latest news, better said latest comments from Rio Ferdinand on Mikel Arteta, it just got me thinking, what is it with these people? When they can't find a good football-related reason to criticize him, they start saying shit like this. Only an Arsenal manager would do that. You know what? Let me give you the full quote to better understand what this is about. This is what Rio Ferdinand said on his Wide with 5 podcast. He was feeding some of the guests at my wedding like that. If I'm paying for that, he ain't feeding me nothing. Not having it. But he was going around some of the guests doing that. A Manchester United manager ain't doing that. Only an Arsenal manager would do that type of stupidness. Pep Guardiola ain't doing that. I mean, this is comical to me. Why is he even talking about the way Mikel Arteta eats during his night out with the family? What is it with these people? Are they really so jealous of Mikel Arteta that they attack him at every step and are constantly trying to find some flaws in him? And I'm not talking just about Rio Ferdinand. I don't give 2 cents about his opinion on Mikel Arteta or anything related to Arsenal Football Club, honestly. But this also goes for Ange Postecoglou, Eddie Howe, Gary Neville, Richard Keys, Eric Ten Hag, I don't know. All those other former players, pundits, managers who are just filled with hate and jealousy towards Mikel Arteta and Arsenal at the moment. You know what I think? I think it's because Arteta is so much younger than them. I mean, it's tragic to me that 60-year-old Ange Postecoglou is trying to get into a beef with some 40-year-old manager. Nothing against Big Ange. He's doing a great job. They are now, 5th, 6th on the table. And I would imagine if he somehow manages to grab a top 6 finish and gets them into Europa League for next season, media outlets will probably start making stories and documentaries about him. Brilliant up-and-coming manager Ange Postecoglou, who is, by the way, older than Steve Bruce, probably, took Tottenham to Europa League. That's the narrative that they picked from the start. And everything he does is considered phenomenal and out of this world. Meanwhile, if a 40-year-old Arteta, who is managing the youngest squad in the Premier League, fails to win the title and finishes 2nd or 3rd, the headlines will be, Arteta bottled it again. This is why he will never be a top-class manager. They need more experienced manager. And then all the Rio Ferdinands, Gary Nevilles, etc. will start rubbing their hands. Let's go! Arteta is a fraud. How has he lost the title to Manchester City again? Embarrassing. Meanwhile, their manager, who spent £500 million or whatever since he came to the club, is currently 8th on the table. 8th. And they dropped out of the Champions League while breaking all those negative records. If you don't remember, let me remind you. Most goals conceded by a Premier League side in the group stage of a Champions League campaign. Worst Champions League campaign in the history of Manchester United. And only one English side in the history of the Champions League has garnered fewer points than Manchester United this season. So my question is, why am I seeing Mikel Arteta all over my timeline, getting slammed for everything he does, when their clubs are in complete shambles? You know who I'm talking about. I'm not talking just about Rio Ferdinand. Chelsea Football Club have spent, what, over £1 billion on new players in the last 12 months or so. And they are currently, what, 10th on the table. They spent £1 billion and they are, what, 10th. And I swear to you, I've gone through most of the UK-based media this morning. When I was trying to read the latest Arsenal news stories and everything else, football-related, and I haven't seen one major article or news about Mauricio Pochettino and his disaster class of a season, or about their owners or their players. Players who costed, I repeat, over £1 billion. Nothing. Absolutely nothing about Chelsea in the latest news. But Arsenal, who just won 5-0 over the weekend, is in every second or third article. Arteta needs to fix this. This is not good enough. There's still room for improvement. Arsenal are still not good enough to win the title. Former players criticizing the club, and so on and so on. It's the narrative, and the media are desperately trying to create the narrative that fits them. Could you imagine if it was the other way around? If Arsenal spent over £1 billion on new players and we are 10th on the table? Could you just imagine the media backlash that Arsenal and Mikel Arteta would receive from all these journalists, pundits, former players, etc.? Or if Mikel Arteta broke all those negative records in the Champions League and finished last in his group, like Erik ten Hag did. Just imagine that for a second. It would be the end of the world. Aliens would start flying around. The world would turn upside down. I don't know. But just imagine that for a second. How would the media react if Arsenal set all those negative records? I just needed to get this off my chest because I'm honestly tired of hearing all this rubbish when it comes to Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. If I wanted, I would go on and make the video half an hour long. Believe me, there's still a lot I'd like to say on this topic. But I don't want to spend my time talking about this when we have some other football-related news coming out. That's it. In short, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Good news. Peace.